Hi, this is Deep Tran.
I'm Jose Solis.
And we're your token theater friends. Two people who love theater so much that after a week of protesting and collective action, we still found time to watch two plays at home because we're not just doing this for all protesters, we're also doing this for arts lovers and for you listeners who, for some odd reason, are giving us money to do this. What are you thinking?
We're so grateful that we were so excited about how all the support that we felt is like such a beautiful counterpoint to all the anger and heartbreak and soul crushingness of last week. So thank you so much for supporting us. It means the world to us. We are so happy, and I would cry, but I put on like my mascara right now, so you don't want to see that.
Yeah, after the inaugural episode, we realized that it's not just the female presenting part of this duo. Like, Jose also needs to put on mascara. So thank you for doing that for our fans today. And at the end of the episode, we'll read all the names of the people who have given us money. Yes, as Jose was saying, we are so grateful, like out of all of the places that you can give money to, and there are many really worthy causes right now, the fact that you all are contributing to get this project off the ground, like I am just overwhelmed and I would cry, except I don't really cry in front of other people. But I'm crying on the inside. But we have a great show for you today. First off, we are going to be talking about this past week in theater news. There are some very interesting discoveries that was going around Twitter about certain Broadway theaters and who they contributed to in the 2016 election. Hint, it was not to Hillary. And then we're going to be talking about two shows that we saw this week in the safety in our homes. We are going to be talking about Passover by Antoinette Nwandu and American Son by Christopher Demos Brown. And we'll talk about their portrayals of police brutality and which play gets to go to Broadway and which isn't. Hint, it was not the one written by a Black woman. Surprise! And Jose, do you want to talk to us about our guest for today?
Yes, I am delighted that we're going to be talking to Jasmine Batchelor, who I have seen on stage a couple of times, but I absolutely fell in love with her work when I saw her as Isabella last year at the Mobile Unit's production of Measure for Measure, where she did things with her face and her eyes that, Shakespeare, I'm sorry, but Jasmine doesn't need your words to convey all of the things that she can convey. So we're going to be talking to Jasmine about her new film, The Surrogate, directed by Jeremy Hirsch, and one of my favorite movies that I have seen in years. So, yay!
Jose, can you explain to us how Broadway works in terms of who owns the theaters?
Certainly I can. So basically there's three organizations. I was going to say corporations, and I keep correcting myself, but are they that different from corporations? Not that much, really.
Mm-hmm.
There's three organizations that own every theater, basically, on Broadway. It's the Nederlanders, the Schuberts, and Jude Jensen, who own altogether, one of them owns 9 companies. Nine. One of them owns 9 theaters, then the other one owns 7 or whatever, and then 5. It's so interesting because one of the first things that you learn when you're learning about film history, for instance, is that when movie studios started in Hollywood, movie studios owned the theaters. So they owned each theater chain. So one of the first things that needed to happen in the industry for it to work in a more democratic way was that the government had to intervene and break apart these monopolies. It's never happened for Broadway, though. So Broadway's a monopoly. It's run by 3 companies, most of them led and started by, not most, all of them led and started by white men. So this week we saw that thanks to, I don't even know how all of this like access to information thing works, and I don't even know how people are inspired to, go look for very specific things. But we found out this week that 4 years ago, the Nederlanders made an obscene amount of contributions to
$150,000.
To the campaign of a certain man whose name I don't say out loud because I break into hives. But he's 45. He's the president right now. So imagine this. Back in 2016, as all of Broadway was patting themselves on the back with like love is love and everything's wonderful and we love everyone and bye inequality, the people who were saying all these things and who were celebrating love and how we were all the same were performing in theaters owned by people who were supporting racism, sexism, homophobia, the disregard of human rights, etc., etc., etc. The problem is that, as with most things that matter to the rest of us, Broadway doesn't talk about any of this. So people this week were shocked when they saw those numbers. And what's appalling to me is that a lot of people are saying, but they have changed. The man who was doing all of that has changed. But if you look at the amount of contributions and the amount of money they're now giving to Democratic candidates, for instance, it doesn't even come close to all the money that went to support this man who is now trying to kill all of us.
Yeah. And I don't know if you saw this, but Karen Olivo, who's a Tony winner and whose musical Moulin Rouge was on Broadway this season, but it wasn't at a Nederlander theater, right? It was at Jamison. Well, she posted up a commitment saying, and in quotes, if the money I've helped the Nederlanders make is going to cause us that directly and negatively impact our well-being, I vow to stop. I'll need to see receipts from here on out. And I feel like, and so far, like that's the first person I've seen make big Broadway star make that kind of commitment to not be supporting the system, because that's where all this ticket money goes to. That's like these like when you're buying a ticket to a Nederlander show and they own, how many theaters on Broadway do they own?
9.
9. Yeah. When you go see one of those 9 shows, plus any of the shows in theaters that they own around the country, like you are contributing in some way to these political causes that you may not agree with. And so that's what we mean when we talk about theater can be political, because we don't operate in a vacuum of, oh, these people just make art. No, at the very top, these producers get millions upon millions of dollars every year. And what are they doing with that money? Well, you can go online and at fec.gov and see what they're doing with that money. And so like what should like have what has the conversations been like online from like people in the community besides Karen Olivo? Have you noticed anyone making that kind of stand?
Not yet, but I love that Karen came out as like, show me the receipts. And it's time for people to talk about it, because one of the things that I even mentioned to you when we were texting about this was I was so horrified. I was like, does Cher know? Because Cher's like one of the biggest like anti, 45 people in the industry. Like she's always talking about what a moron he is and how fucking like horrible he is and what a monster he is. Does Cher know that her show, the Cher show, that's telling the story of her life, was, happening at a theater where 4 years ago all their money was going to the Republicans? Does she know that? Like, I kind of want to be like, Cher, you need to know this. And I wonder if she would be like, if I could turn back time, I would not let my show happen at a Nederlander theater.
Though I do have to say, I was on the FEC website last night, and I did notice that Jamison, which is owned by Jordan Roth, like they've been contributing to Act Blue campaigns and Democratic campaigns, and so, but they own fewer theaters on Broadway.
Good for them. And also, I don't think it's a coincidence that they usually have the most humane and the best lines when you're lining up to go into the theater, their theater is always so efficient. And so, like you just book in basically. You don't have to stand in line like you do at the other theaters. So good for them. That's good karma.
Well, and we're hoping, we know like Patti LuPone, Barbara Streisand, Lin-Manuel Miranda. There's so many people in the industry who have been very vocal against this president. And I would love to see them be as vocal about the fact that the people who own Broadway have helped contribute to the state that we're in. Because it's easy to criticize things that, happen out there, but is it as easy when it's in your own backyard? Like, I feel like that's when the rubber meets the road,
We were wondering about what shows we could see that were available to stream that had something to do with what was going on right now. And we both thought about Passover, which is streaming on Amazon Prime, and it's this production was directed by Spike Lee. But it was important also to show like the contrast with something else. And we thought about American Son, which is streaming on Netflix, and how both shows are about white supremacy, police brutality, and the effect that it has on Black Americans and Black men and women living all over the world, basically, also. So one of them is written by a Black female playwright, the other by a white male playwright. So we're going to be digging into how two things that at the surface look like they're dealing with the same subjects and issues are not necessarily doing that.
So Passover, it's a play by Antoinette Nwandu. It was first performed in Chicago at the Steppenwolf Theater, and that's where it was filmed by Spike Lee. And it is about it was inspired in part by Samuel Beckett's Waiting for Godot, which was about two men who are just stuck in purgatory and they try to get out, but they can't. But instead of being about two white men, it's about two young Black teens who are stuck on a very poor block in some place. In the version we saw, it was a poor block in Chicago, and they're trying to get out, but there are different forces that are keeping them there, from like poverty to aggressive police presence who tells them that they're useless or they're violent every single time, bringing them down, and also like they're sleeping on the streets, so it seems like they also lack parental guidance or educational guidance. And it's all of these things that prevent them from leaving this block. And the only way they can leave, unfortunately, is through violence. But we're not going to spoil it for you. But what was really sad about it, and I knew this play from Reputation when it was in Chicago because it was very controversial, and then I saw it at Lincoln Center, and what's really sad is even before I saw it, I knew this was not going to end well. I knew that they were not going to get out, and I hate the fact that that is my assumption going in, and I am not wrong. And what was really interesting to me about seeing it is like the biggest. So when I was reading the reviews for the play, a lot of them talked about like the overuse of the N-word in the play. And one of the negative reviews used that as a criticism of the characters. And it just made me think, oh, like by discounting these young people because their vocabulary isn't as advanced as yours, like you're kind of proving the point of the play, because society keeps telling these young people that they're not smart enough and they don't have potential. And so it becomes this play shows like how it becomes a self-perpetuating cycle. And what was really interesting to me is like the playwright Antoinette Nwandu, like she shows us like the different nuances behind the very repetitive vocabulary. Yes, they say the N-word a lot, and they also use the word brother a lot, but it means a different thing depending on how they say it. And like giving them the room to just not be like, a Christian Cooper, a person an upstanding Black person who has really great vocabulary and who obviously doesn't. He went to Harvard, so obviously he doesn't deserve to get called on by the cops by Amy Cooper. But by saying just because like they don't look the way that you want them to look or sound the way that you want them to sound, it doesn't mean that they're not deserving of humanity and of consideration and of love. Because like that's always the excuse. And so by putting these kind of presences on stage, I feel like that is the radical thing. It's especially when they're doing, in some cases I saw at Lincoln Center, so it was a lot of white people in that audience. So if you're forcing white people to see that, to face that, to be comfortable with that, like that's a radical act to me.
Right, and I have noticed that a lot of the time, I would say probably like 90% of the time or more, I don't know math, I don't know what I'm talking about when I talk about numbers, but most of the time when I see white people, journalists and white critics obsess so much about something like the N-word, they're forgetting that when we have that word in plays by Black artists, they're reappropriating a word that has been used against them through the entire history of Black people living in America. So what bothers those people that they would focus so much on the language of the characters in this play is that they wish they could say that word as often as they think it. And it bothers them that these characters are allowed to say it, but because they know it's not a word that they can drop themselves in public or in their pieces, of course they're going to be obsessed with civility and proper language. Of course that's what's going to happen. So it says so much more about these critics when they talk about something like that than it says about the play. I love that Antoinette Nwandu does so much with this, like you said, this white frame, right? That's Beckett. Although the play might be inspired by that setup and by that storytelling device, the world that she opens up through magical characters and through spiritual connections is more heartbreaking and much more effective than anything that Beckett ever accomplished. Because it doesn't just stay within the limitations of what aesthetics and symbolism does. It's a play that's like almost crying out that the pain of these characters is so strong that the only way for the playwright to be even able to convey it and to be able to speak about it in a way that doesn't destroy her in the process is through this almost magical setting.
My son never came home.
Look, I'm sure that he's gonna turn up. First name?
Jamal, Jamal.
Does he have any distinguishing scars, tattoos, gold teeth?
American Son is a play that was on Broadway in 2018. It's by Christopher Demos Brown. It was directed on Broadway by Kenny Leon, a Black man. Christopher is a white man. And in it, Kerry Washington plays a concerned mother whose son goes missing. She's at a police station and no one's giving her any information about what happened to him. And then her husband comes in and the drama of being in a multiracial household comes up. And it's once again, I don't have to spoil it for you to tell you what you think has happened has happened. And what was fascinating about this play was, I knew going in that it was going to be okay. What's fascinating about this play is like I don't unlike Passover, which concentrates on the two young men who are the recipients of violence, this play concentrates on the parents and how they react, and through that it tries to humanize a son. But it also becomes instead of it being like a conversation among it also becomes like a conversation among Black and white people about race in this country and about whether respectability politics, whether, if you change yourself and you look a certain way and you talk more like a white person and you're more, deferential to police officers, does that prevent you from being attacked? And do people who look the way that the young people look in Passover and the way that they sound in Passover, do they deserve the violence? And it's a 90-minute debate that doesn't really go anywhere. And if you're the type of person who consumes this a lot in media, it feels exhausting. And what's interesting to me is it felt exhausting in a way that Passover didn't. So yeah, I want to talk about that.
I agree with you on that point. Like, it's, again, they're visiting the same subjects and they're touching the same themes and stuff. But for instance, something else that American Son does is that it frames the action also on the three men who we see on stage, as well as the son that we never see. And it's almost also, again, about how gender comes into play in this, because the son in question was a mixed race son. The mother is Kerry Washington's character Kendra, but the father is played by Stephen Pasquale. So one of the grossest moments in the play is when there's a police officer who's been talking to Kendra, played by Jeremy Jordan, and he's been talking to her about, he's not giving her any information, he's not helping her, he's being condescending and horrible. And when he sees this white man, Stephen Pasquale, come in, he instantly assumes that this man is siding with him. And he starts talking about how ghetto she is and about how she went from zero to ghetto or something like that, which is like, oh. And then the guy's like, well, actually, he's my son and you're talking about my wife. But even that, one of the most effective moments in the play is also the look in Kerry Washington's face, the look of disbelief and what the fuck is going on, when she sees her husband, who's an FBI agent, giving this cop who has been treating her like crap his business card, because he says, hey, if you need help at the FBI, don't hesitate to reach out to me, right? And we see the way in which whiteness comes into play, where this guy, for instance, he doesn't even think about the fact that he would have never been able to do the same thing for his son because his son was mixed race. So, this play, my favorite thing about this play was Kerry Washington, who I have not really been, I've not seen her work on TV as much, but I remember sitting in the theater that night on Broadway. I couldn't take my look off of her, because as the play trivializes almost everything that's happening to these characters, she's always above the action and she's always above the play, and the kind of pain that she can face was incredible. And just like soul draining, heartbreaking, just like horrible. I felt her fury and I felt her grief, and it's one of those performances that I know I'm never going to be able to forget. But it's so interesting because hearing you talk about how white critics were, policing the use of the N-word in Passover, the reviews, because all this like woke white critics and white journalists were criticizing that the play was written by a white person. And they're absolutely right. That is something that needs to be criticized. But my point is that if you're telling stories about Black characters, white journalists will always find a way to tell you that you're doing it wrong. Even if it's being written by someone like them, they're going to criticize it because it's not the way that Black characters are. And if it's written by a Black playwright, they're going to be criticizing it because it's not up to their white standards. So can Black characters in fiction ever be, criticized by critics and judged on their own terms? Can they?
Unfortunately, when you're reading a lot of criticisms by white writers of Black work, it is from the viewpoint of someone from the outside trying to engage with this foreign thing. And so the play has to do like a double thing of, you gotta teach the person, who's not like you to do the thing, and you have to also hold space for your community. And unfortunately, it's really hard to do both at once. And and they shouldn't have to do both at once.
So next we're going to be talking to Jasmine Batchelor, who is the lead in The Surrogate, a film by Jeremy Hirsch, which she plays Jess Harris. She's a web designer who works for a nonprofit in Brooklyn, who has two very close gay best friends. It's a mixed race couple. So they want to be parents, and they ask Jess if she is willing to be their surrogate. She immediately says yes, and then something happens, and they find out something when she's something about baby. Turns the movie on its head. Were you expecting something, like a happy, liberal, fantasy about how families work today? You are wrong. The movie then turns into this moral study and this very adult film in the way that movies were being made in the 1970s, where you went to see things about philosophical arguments and about existential things, which with characters that were also very human and very alive. So I love this movie so much. And we have to mention that you're token theater friends. Why are you talking about movies? Well, like I said, Jasmine does incredible work on stage. But also, there are so many theater people in this movie. And right now, while we are in quarantine, if you watch The Surrogate, you can get to see Jasmine and Sullivan. But you can also see Tanya Pinkins, who plays her mom. And I don't want to spoil all the people who we've seen on stage who are in this movie, but it's worth it, And hey, we're in quarantine. If you're watching Zoom readings, you can go watch The Surrogate and pretend it's a play. Okay, bye. So we're going to talk to Jasmine, and let's do this.
I'm a surrogate for my two best friends.
That's really cool. I could never do that.
Oh, people say that all the time. But I'm like, no, I think you could.
Alex just told us the good news. Mazel tov.
Jasmine Batchelor, thank you so much for joining us today. I am such a huge fan of your work, and I've seen you on stage. And it's so funny because when I went back to do more research on you, I was like, oh, I saw her in this, I saw her in this, I saw her in this. And I was like, oh wow, she's the same she's the same actor. I was like, oh wow, she's so mind blowing. And it is such a treat to have you on our show today to talk about The Surrogate, which is one of my favorite movies that I've watched in years and years. And can you tell us a little bit about The Surrogate and who you play? And also you're an executive producer in this. So tell us a little bit about that. And then we're going to go into the really strange journey that the movie has had in its release, because, it's a long story. So why don't you start off us, Jasmine?
Yeah. First off, I want to say thank you so much for having me. This is both such a dream to be talking about a movie I was in, but to be talking about it with you two is fantastic. And I'm like, how did I get here? So thank you so much. So yeah, The Surrogate was written by Jeremy Hirsch and also directed by Jeremy Hirsch. And it is about a 29-year-old woman named Jess who decides to be a surrogate for her two best friends. And they are played by Sullivan and Chris. And as you can tell by the way that I say their names, I love them dearly. They are fantastic actors. And along the way, I think about a couple of weeks into their pregnancy, because it is all of their child, they discover that the fetus has Down syndrome. And from there on, it's a kind of a dilemma between the three friends and everyone that would be impacted by the birth of this child in some way, to figure out, if they're going to continue with the surrogacy, and if they do, how can they be the best parents to the child, learning about the Down syndrome community, learning about the parenting community, and in that learning about each other. And if I can speak just from the person who played Jess, really learning about Jessica Harris. And so I like to think of it as an odd coming of age story for myself, because sometimes it's not until you run into something that is so specific and challenging in a way that you get to figure out who you are. So I think that in this movie, she gets to figure out who she is. Yeah. Yeah. And and I forgot to answer this. So you said, yes, I am also a producer on the film. I am an associate producer, and it's my first time producing anything. And yeah, it feels so weird. Someone was like, oh yeah, Jasmine Batchelor is an actress and associate producer of a film. It's like, I'm those things? That's me? Really, I did that? But yeah, I just really, my job was partly helping to figure out, like throw ideas in for casting. And so Erica Hart, who is an incredible casting director and got everyone on board, who is an absolute dream from the New York theater scene, really did her job so well. And I just had like a little bit of a suggestion, like when I knew someone was really great and could be available. If you know me, if anyone out there knows me, they know that I like ride hard for my friends and for people that I think are insanely talented. So I just did that with this film as well.
And I love it when things are filmed in New York, because then it becomes like a not Where's Waldo, like a who's who of New York theater actors, and everyone's usually like in bit roles, so it's like, oh, film people may not know who these people are, but oh my gosh, us theater nerds, we know who these people are. Give them more lines.
Please.
So can you tell me about the virtual theatrical release that's happening on Friday for the film? Because, you know, that's unprecedented in terms of how these things are distributed.
I have never seen anything like this. But I mean, we've never seen anything like COVID. We've never seen anything like what's happening right now. So we were supposed to premiere at South by Southwest this year. But in light of the coronavirus doing what it did and is doing, obviously South by Southwest was canceled. And so for a while, we did not know what was happening. And so about a month ago or so, Jeremy told me that we're now doing this thing where they are now putting tickets on pre-order for actual theaters throughout the United States. Theaters like, I can think of an indie theater. I'll give you an example. There's one theater. Yes. Or like there's one theater in Dayton, Ohio that I used to go to all the time when I was an undergrad. And I was like, oh, I'm a cool person because I see the like real movies there. It's like theaters like that are actually reaching out to independent artists and cultivating a library of incredible and nuanced art. Those kind of theaters, the mom and pop theaters, the theaters that you go to see the movies that fellow theater artists really want to see. A lot of those theaters are going to be showcasing the film on Friday, so you can pre-order tickets and you can order them through those theaters. I think they're like $18 each, and you get to watch it from home, but you also get to support your local theater, which is a big plus and a big reason why Jeremy decided to do it that way. So not only are you getting to watch us and support theater artists making film and support Jeremy's movie, but you also get to support your local theaters, and they need it right now. So, yeah.
Okay, so Tanya Pinkins plays your mom in this movie. And it is like the scenes, I'm sorry to say this, Jasmine, but the scenes where like Tanya Pinkins is yelling at your character, Jess, were some of my favorite. I was like, I want Tanya Pinkins to yell at me also and to tell me what a bad, offspring I am.
If you sacrifice your work, you will regret it.
Mom, I'm not happy there.
I want you to actually think about this choice.
Jess, it's still me. We deserve to try and have a kid who's
perfect.
If you don't mind taking a second to brag about the cast of this movie and everyone who we know from the New York stage that's in this movie, because it's mind-blowing. So can you get us started with that?
God. Yes. And I don't, so please forgive me. I don't want to leave anyone out because, my brain is in a million different places, but we can start with Tanya because when they were like, yeah, we're thinking about getting someone to play your mom, we're not sure. They went through like a long list of like these incredible Black actresses that I have spent so many years watching on stage or reading about and being like, who? Oh my God, how are they doing that? Like, that's what I want to do. That's who I want to be. And when they said she was going to be my mom, I was like, shut. First, am I allowed to curse on this?
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yep. All you
I'm
want.
like, shut the fuck up. Like, are you kidding me? She's incredible. And she has such a political voice, and she's so outspoken about the things that she believes in. And she's not afraid to say what she feels and say what she thinks. And that, as I guess the world is realizing now for Black women, can be a dangerous thing and an unwelcome thing. So the fact that she is so unafraid and well, who knows if she is afraid, but she is so bold in her approach and her word, as well as her talent, is something to be recognized. And, you know, obviously Jeremy was like, well, that kind of person should be Karen, because, you know, the woman who plays my mom is like, Karen, as Jess's mom, is unapologetic in how she feels and very direct. So it makes sense. And Leon Addison Brown plays my father. And Leon and I were in a play at Baltimore Center Stage together where we met. And we played love interest. And that was like such a weird first, it was my first play that I did out of Juilliard. And he was so kind. Really shared his experience and talent with me and his friendship, that I was just so lucky to have him as my father in this film. He does a wonderful job. I think there's a scene that got cut of him like consoling me after Tanya yells at me. But that was cut, but it's one of my like most favorite moments. And let's see, we got Brooke Bloom, who is
she's so good.
She's so, see, I have no words. Like, she's so good. She's so incredible. I think she was on set for maybe like 3 days, but we had some very intense scenes together. And we just fell into a rhythm and seemed to really understand each other. And she's just one of the talents that I'm really glad I got introduced to in this film. I mean, there are not enough good words to say about Brooke. And I'm probably going to say this about everybody because I love everyone who's in this film. Let's see. I got to work with my classmate and my best friend, one of the most beautiful people in the world, Brandon Michael Hall, who is more of a TV guy now, do you know? But he is from theater. He's raised in the theater. He was going to be in Blue, which is now postponed because of coronavirus with Felicia Rashad. But he's incredible, and it was really great to have a best friend in that kind of situation, because that was my first love scene on camera. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So really glad that my really good friend and someone that I trusted was there for that. Let's see, Chris Perfetti, Sullivan Jones. So good, which people will remember from Slave Play, and Chris from it's Moscow 6 times. Did you guys see that? Did you see? He was brilliant, absolutely brilliant. There are so many. I mean, everyone is a theater person. Literally every person in this project, with the exception of Leon, who plays the little boy, is from theater. And the performances are astounding. I mean, taking myself out of it, I can watch everyone else and be like, these performances are so nuanced and layered and beautiful, and really taken from the text in a way that a theater artist can do. It's incredible. I'm in awe of all of them. I sound like such a fangirl, you guys. I'm sorry.
No, I'm in awe of how like seamlessly you and the cast were able to, because we've all seen you on stage, and so we know that you can do like big vocal moments because that's required for the theater, but to do these like really quiet, like I feel like I'm just watching your face and your eyes most of the time in this, which is just so refreshing because you never get to. But I actually wanted to ask you about just the morality question in this because it's just something that you never consider, you know, as really woke liberals as we are. Like, I feel like we really haven't reached the complex parts of the disability conversation. And so in doing this, like, did it open your own mind to those, like, how like how inaccessible the world is?
Oh yeah. Oh my God. Yeah. If I'm being honest with you, I started thinking about that when Jeremy and I were going through the scripts, like when we would have weekly meetings, almost weekly meetings, like every Saturday we would go to like the park or something and talk about the movie or talk about our lives and get to know each other. And he started opening my eyes a lot to the simple things. Like there's a scene in the movie where Jess walks by a bar and notices that the only way that you can come in are stairs. And like I live my life and I am an able-bodied person, as they say, quote unquote, and I never have to worry about that, right? And the only time that I've actually been woken up to things like that or are like when I'm coming up from the subway. Side note, I really miss the subway at this point, so just saying that is the thing. But like I'm coming up from the subway with a huge bag or my suitcase, or I see a mom and her stroller, or I see someone with a wheelchair on the train and I'm like, they can't get off at the stop. They have to take another, like they have to take a longer route perhaps, or take a bus or go out of their way when the shortest route should be accessible to them. That's stuff that if you don't see it, if you don't experience it, maybe you haven't really thought about it before. So I'm really thankful to this movie for just opening my eyes to that and understanding that right now a lot of people are opening their eyes to the Black Lives Matter movement, right? Because a lot of them have not ever had to consider the way that Black people look at the world, much less the way that people of any color other than identifying as white look at the world. And now they have to. And so now there's this great awakening of people reading books and people asking their Black friends what's going on, which please, I mean, low-key, please stop doing that. But or sending emails. But in this movie, I had to check myself and kind of do the same thing. Be like, I care about these people. I care about this community. So in what way can I use the privilege that I have, which is, a person that's just operating without having to ask these questions, and what good can I do for them if I am in this position? And that also applies to like the Down syndrome community. So Leon in the movie, I love that kid so much. He is honestly the star. I think his name should be replacing mine. He's like the most adorable. I mean, when he was on set, everybody was like zoom, like looking, because he has a life and he's so smart and he's so just like he's very opinionated in the way that little kids can be. But we also took a shine to each other, and I love him so much. But in my relationship with him and like hanging out with him and Jeremy outside of the film, I was like, there are things that are going to get there are people and situations that are going to be obviously against Leon because of the way he was born. And obviously that is not fair. And obviously that is going to be hard. And he has no control over those things being there because he did not ask for this, like none of us did. Like we didn't ask even to be born, so why do we have to put up with the shit that comes our way? But in thinking about that, I was like, but I can do something. Like he's a kid right now. He's a child. He doesn't know about half of the things, the stupid shit that's going to happen. But I can maybe get a head start on that in helping that not happen, or helping, like, in some way him be equipped to know that he is loved, that he is unique, that he is special, that he is valued, so that shit doesn't hurt so much. In the same way that I try to do that for like my little brother, or anyone that would have to deal with that bullshit, or even myself.
I want to talk a little bit for this generation, I would say, of actors, your generation specifically, Jasmine, where there's going to be a world, pre-COVID and post-COVID. And one of the things that I sound, I feel horrible even saying this, but one of the silver linings in COVID has been that it has revealed how much bullshit there is surrounding the way in which we have access to art. For instance, right now, suddenly everyone can stream their plays, and suddenly everyone's just doing digital theater. When before they were telling us that we had to pay upwards of like $100 to go see an off-Broadway show, for instance. And, Deep and I, for instance, if we were not theater journalists, we would not be able to afford to go see any shows. Actors wouldn't be able to afford to go see theater. Theater would be only for like super rich Upper East Side and Upper West Side people, right?
Yeah.
And right now, everyone's having theater delivered to their homes. But also, the same happens with movies. An independent film like The Surrogate, for instance, would first have to go through the process where it's released at Film Forum or the IFC Center, and it runs there for months, fingers crossed, and then fingers crossed, an awards campaign, backs it up, and then fingers crossed again, maybe you get like Spirit Award nominations, maybe you get Oscar nominations, but it's always like waiting for something more to happen rather than just like valuing the work for what it is. So right now, as an actor, Jasmine, you're given this opportunity to have both your stage work, if you were doing anything on stage that could be streamed or live cast, right? And also your movie. Instead of being in one theater in each coast, people all over the world maybe can get to watch your film right now. Yeah, fingers. I'm gonna yell everyone I know to go see this movie. So what is that like for you as an artist? To know that you're at this crossroads almost, where are you hoping that things are gonna open in a way that this is just like, the floodgate is like bursting, and we won't be able to go back to what it was like before COVID, because it's not fair. Now that we know that it's possible, they cannot take us back to what it was like before.
Never. I really love that you brought that up, because that is the theme, I think, of 2020, right? Is that we can't go back to the way that things were before in any of this, and in literally anything that we're dealing with. And so we're seeing that in our little community of theater and entertainment. So I want to bring up someone that is like one of my heroes and I miss dearly, Jim Houghton. He was the artist. Yes, I heard that. Yes, Liz. But he is a big reason why I was even at Juilliard in the first place. And I've never seen someone with that much power treat my family with such respect and love, and treat me with respect and love, and to see every single person as a singular person of value. But that's a tangent. I'm just telling you how much I love Jim Houghton and I miss him. But he had a really great mission for the signatures, that he wanted to make it more accessible. He wanted to make sure that everyone could see what was happening there. He didn't want to make sure that the tickets were like $100, to $300 for a ticket, because theater is not made just for the people who are of a certain tax bracket. And if it is, what the fuck are we doing? Do you know? Because we don't do that. Like you said, I couldn't see if I didn't go to Juilliard, if I didn't know the people in the shows, 75% of those shows I couldn't see. I wouldn't be able to even understand what an audition was for, because I wouldn't be able to see the play. So his mission really, when I was in school, opened my eyes to like, you're right. This isn't a fancy thing. This is a lot of work for us. Everyone who's behind the scenes, who's on that stage, who programs it, it's a lot of work. But it doesn't mean that it should just be for people who make over $100,000 a year, just to come in and chill and go home and not learn anything. It's for the people, and it always has been for the people. So now that we have experienced like, oh, well, we're all at home, let's just stream it now, which I'm very thankful for. But I'm also like, so you guys could have been doing this the whole time? like I taught high schoolers in Queens for a year. I could have showed them this play that I was telling them about for the longest time. They could have had access to this instead of me fighting for buses that we couldn't afford, and fighting for transportation, and fighting for parental slips. And I could have actually given them the gift of this Interesting. So now that we know this, you're right, we can't go back. It has to be for everyone because theater is so often how we learn. It is so often how we express ourselves. It is so often how we learn about different viewpoints that aren't ours. It's so often that we get to see ourselves represented. Like, I'll never forget. I will never ever forget. And this is a theater. This is a movie. But I'll never forget. I was way too young to be watching this, but I saw What's Love Got to Do with It with my grandparents. Where I was like, I think I was like 5 or something. I was way too young to be seeing that movie. Like way too young. But I saw Angela Bassett, and I was like, "Oh, that's what I'm doing. That's what that is. That's what that feeling inside is. That's what this story of Tina Turner and her, like, I've never seen anything like this, and it changed my little life. It changed my life. But it was only because I was able to see that. And like, we couldn't afford theater when I was little. I was living in North Philadelphia. We couldn't do that. And I think about if I could have gone, if I could have seen theater and ballet sooner, I mean, we're robbing our communities, we're robbing our children, we're robbing our neighbors and our friends and our parents of the opportunity of learning, of the opportunity of changing if we restrict who theater is accessible to. So yeah, we can't go back. And you saw that recent letter that's like, we see you, white American theater. We're not going back. We're not.
Did you see the Tina Turner musical on Broadway?
I haven't seen it, and I was waiting, and now I'm slapping myself because I have friends in it, and I'm like, I should have seen it. I should have seen it before. But if and when Broadway comes back, please y'all come back, because the clips I have seen, holy shit.
Yeah.
Have you guys seen it?
Yeah. No, we wish we had Adrienne Warren's energy.
I wish I had Adrienne Warren's everything. She is a force. Oh my goodness.
Are you also trained as a singer, Jasmine? Do you have a good singing voice?
I do, but not that musical theater voice. So I always say if I were to quit acting and do anything, I would want to be like an R&B singer, or I'd sing in a jazz club. I wish I had Adrienne's range. I mean, that girl is. If she hears this, know that I'm standing very hard on the other end of this interview.
I wanna ask you a very technical question for a second, and this is, based on what you mentioned, Deep, also about like how much work you do with your eyes. One of the things that I'm always like so mystified about you is that the stage isn't very friendly for people to like focus on people's faces, right? That's why a lot of theater ends up being a lot of people shouting basically, and a lot of people yelling at each other, so everyone can hear. But the work of yours that I've seen, and I'm so excited that people can, get to see your work. They've seen you on stage, and they're going to be able to see your work in a surrogate, because you're doing the same thing. I mean, not the same thing. That's not what I mean. But you're doing the same thing that you do on stage, which is so magical. It's almost like you almost convince audience members sitting, in a theater that we have the ability to zoom into you, and that's not something that any actor can do. And how do you do that? How do you pull that off? I'm like, what kind of magic are you working on stage?
We don't like cameras here, so I don't know how you can have a camera that close to your face.
Ooh, oh, I don't actually know either. I don't know. I gotta be honest with you guys. I didn't know I was doing that, so I'm very flattered that I literally am just trying to live. I'm just trying to live in the moment, and so often I will leave the stage and be like, that was shit. Like, or like I tried. But I really, honestly, I'm just trying to be. Do you know what I'm actually trying to do? Let me stop bullshitting and tell you like the truth. I'm actually just trying to connect with my partner and make them look really good. That's what I'm trying to do. I mean, that's one of the first things that I learned as an actor, and something that I keep coming back to is that it's not about me. It is about the other person. And so whatever I can do to get them involved in the conversation or give them back the same energy or more that they're giving me, the better that the thing will be as a whole. So whatever you see coming from like me, whatever that is literally just me trying to make the other person look or feel as much like they're in the same world as I am, or I am really trying to do justice to the life that I'm living at the moment. Which is why, and this is going to be a little weird tangent, which is why I think that we got to give actors, the opportunity to do that with work and words that the writers believe in. So we have to give writers power, because they're the ones that are going to take us there. I mean, it all comes back to them. So to all my writers out there, we hear you, we believe in you, but they're the reason why I can do good work. It's because of them.
Maybe speaking about power to the writers, can you talk about that incredible column that you wrote for Talkhouse, Say Her Name, which is like, I was like, oh God, she can write this well also? Like, what can't you do, Jasmine?
I can't whistle.
You can't, anyone can whistle, to quote Sondheim.
Yes. Sorry, Sondheim, I lied. I can't. Yeah, thank you for reading that. I got to be honest, it was nerve-wracking to publish it, but not because I guess pre-COVID I might have been like, oh, what are future employers gonna say reading this? Or maybe I might not have. I got into quite a bit of trouble at Juilliard for that very reason, but but I also struggled with like, is this selfish to publish how I feel in this moment? Because honestly, it's not about me. But then I reread it and I was like, no, this is important, because I might be speaking for someone else who had a similar, or is having a similar experience. And I also think it's important that people realize that it's not just about one time. And it's not just about the past, even though this one time and the past are so huge and so disturbing, and it should be a movement. It is also about our future, and it's also about what's happening in our lives daily. So I'm just really grateful to Talkhouse for letting me write about it, and for donating the money to a charity, which thank you guys for that. Yeah, and for Jeremy for introducing me to Talkhouse, for letting me write it. So thank you for reading it. I appreciate that.
Yeah. And will you be protesting again this week?
Oh, fuck yes. Yes. Yeah, yes. I try to balance being an active protester with writing and researching, because I think the two for me go hand in hand. And I realize that I protest best with my words and with my brain. But sometimes the anger is it's in there, and it needs to be exercised in a physical way. So yeah. And I support the protesters, and I think, fuck it, whoever hears this is gonna hear the truth. I also think that people are more important than things. So if you are really concerned if you are concerned with things more than you are concerned with lives, then you need to take a second look at your priorities. That's all.
Okay, Jasmine, this is your time to plug your projects and let us know if you have any upcoming Zoom performances or theater that's happening, and tell people, also our viewers and our listeners, where can they find the Surrogate on Friday?
Yeah. Okay, so I am in a Zoom project. It's written by Emily Bohannon. I'm not sure when it's going to come out, so as soon as I figure that out, I will let you guys know. Let's see. I also am just living and protesting. So the thing you could do for me right now is to support Black lives, either by protesting or by sending your donations to the various bail funds that are taking care of our peaceful protesters out there. Whether they're peaceful or not, shouldn't matter to you. It just matters that they're protesting for life. And you can also educate yourselves and take care of yourselves. And for me, this is such a preachy moment, but for me, if I can shout out to other Black women, the thing you can do for me right now is to take care of yourself. That's it. Just love yourself and take care of yourself. If you're looking for The Surrogate, you can find us at The Surrogate Movie on Instagram, and there's a link there to see where you can purchase tickets for any of the theaters around America. It's right there. I know everybody's on the gram, so pop in there. And yeah, I think that's all the things that I had to say for that. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Jasmine. You are a queen among actors, so I salute you, and thank you for joining us. It has been a true pleasure, and please give Jeremy my love also, and my love to you. And I hope we can grab a drink at some point, even if it's like with straws under our masks.
6 feet away.
Yes.
Joy.
And please take care of yourself too.
Wait, thank you. You both as well.
Yeah. Thank you, Jasmine. You are amazing. And please watch The Surrogate. It's going to be available. I don't know how like modern things work, but The Surrogate is going to be available June 12th. So that means if you're watching or listening to this episode on June 11th, as you should, you can watch the movie tomorrow and let us know what you thought about the movie, what you thought about the interview by finding us on Twitter at TokenTFriends, or you can email us at tips@tokentheaterfriends.com. That's theater with an R-E.
Amazing. And now this is the time of the show when we do our pledge drive.
Yay!
Jose, you were so good at it last week. You want to do this again?
Deep and I are committed to bringing you all of this great. Okay. But as much as we love you and we would do this for free if we could right now, Deep is furloughed. I am unemployed. We are very, 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 very poor. We're like that, that Kristen Wiig in Bridesmaids. I'm poor, except we are super, super poor. And as much as we would love to bring this content for free, which we always do anyway, if you can't help us with your money right now, we know it's very hard times for you to be donating and contributing to anything. But if you can, we want you to feel like you're a part of this, which obviously you are. So we have 3 levels on Patreon. We're starting with a $1 subscription. I mean, can you imagine $1? What can you even buy with $1 anymore? Like you can't even get bubblegum with $1 anymore. But you can have our eternal devotion and our love if you pledge $1 every month. That's it. Then we have a $5 level, and then we have a $10 level, and that's it. We are not asking for hundreds of dollars. If you have them and you want to help us with that, we love you. But if not, just share and let other people know about this. We want to remain free of corporate donors. We want to be like the government, almost, that AOC and Ilhan Omar and the squad dream of. We don't want lobbyists telling us what to do. We don't want editors and boards and bosses telling us what to do, but we have no money. So if you can help with that, great. And if not, we're still going to be here every week, and we still love you, 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 endlessly. But with that said, if you are able to pledge $5 or more, you get extra special stuff and bonus, like a newsletter, and we also mention you on the podcast. So are we ready for some names? Thank you so much. We are keeping our promises, and we want to thank Alex Donnelly, Amanda Finn, Benjamin S. Horner, Brian Herrera, Caroline Hong, Charlotte Canning, Cynthia Furman, David Levy, Diane Wilshire, Dimena, Emily Lathrop, Hannah May, H. David, James Marino, Joe Cross, Joe Iconis, Katrina E. McCann, Kyle Jones, Laura B., Maggie Gilroy, Matt Ross, Matt Tamanini, Megan Kindry, Molly, Nataki Garrett, Oliver Saba, Patrick Daly, SF, Sarah Storm, Zuzi Stefan, and Isati Ziano. You have made us the happiest people on earth today. Thank you so much for your support, and we promise to make you proud And when we don't, please hold us accountable. If you're investing your money in us, let us know when we're failing.
And special shout outs to our friends at Broadway Radio who gave us a very special donation, which we will not talk how much it was, but it blew our minds. And please listen to their podcast as well. They're also an independent producer, and us independent people have to stick together in our quest for freedom from the media establishment.
Amen. Thank you. Thank you so much, Broadway. I have no words. Thank you. Thank you.
We're all doing a happy dance. This has been such a great week. Thank you, everybody. Okay. Well, that's our show for you. We hope you had a good time listening. Check out Passover and American Son. Let us know what you think about those shows, what you felt, and if you have any family members who really don't understand what this is about, those shows are a great start. Just sit them down and just, make, plop their eyes open, Clockwork Orange style, and just make them sit there for 3 hours. I'm kidding, except I'm not. All right. Do you have anything else to say to the people before we get out?
We'll be back next week with a new episode with another really, really wonderful guest. I'm so excited. I'm so grateful to be back.
Yeah, I'm so grateful. I'm grateful for you, Jose.
And I'm very grateful for you today and always.
Okay. Well, thank you all, and we'll see you next time. Bye.